Hi, how are you? Good morning, good evening, depending on the part of the world you are in. My name is Rahab Renewed, or Pastor Rahab, or others know me as the farm girl. Yes, I am a farmer. I am a minister of the gospel. I am a mother. I am one person with many facets in life. Today, I want to talk about a very sensitive topic, crisis. Most of us have found ourselves in crisis. We may not understand what is crisis. And in part A of this topic, I want to I've written a few notes, and I just want to describe what crisis is. So someone may be there watching and has no idea that they're in a crisis, or they've been through a crisis, or they're about to get into a crisis, because crisis is a way of journey that we must all pass. Somehow in life we get ourselves in crisis, right? What is crisis, you may ask? Pastor Rahab, what is crisis? In simple times, crisis is a time of intense difficulty and danger. There are points in our lives where we've had money, and all of a sudden we are in a situation. Floods come and sweep away everything, and we don't have a place to stay. We don't know where we're getting our next meal. Everything goes. Like when during the beginning of the year, when we were having a lot of floods, flash floods, a lot of people lost valuable title deeds. They lost their passports, they lost their identification, they lost their phones, they lost their merchandise, they lost things that were very valuable to them as individuals, or as persons, or as families. And how do you start over again? That is a crisis that, when you try to actually think about it, it's something you wouldn't pray on even your enemy. So crisis is an intense, difficult, or pain. It is a turning point in someone's life, or a turning point in something. Imagine you're employed and you've not been saving, and one day you wake up, you've been retrenched, you're paying a mortgage, you have a car loan, your health insurance is due. I mean, that's a crazy. You haven't completed your the children's school fees. Your mortgage is there. Do you lose the house? Do you pay the kids' school fees? Do you lose your car? Does your insurances? How will you cover all these things? It is a financial crisis. Everything just comes crashing down. Usually, I tend to think in accordance to the Bible. Now I speak as a pastor, that sometimes crisis comes at the verge of breakthroughs. And I'm going to show you a scripture so that you can not think I'm just saying my own things. Crisis happens and appears most times at the verge, or at the curve of a breakthrough. What do I mean? In Exodus chapter 14, write this down. I need you to go study this. Exodus chapter 14, verse 1 to 31. Here, the children of Israel are about to leave Egypt, and I want us to focus on verse 11 and 12. Let me read it for you from my Bible. And it says, verse 11, they said to Moses. Verse 10, we see that they're very terrified. And then they say, verse 11, and they say to Moses, was it because there were no graves in Egypt, and you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us, bringing us out of Egypt? Now we see that the children of Israel have left Egypt, but in front of them is the sea, is the water, and behind them Pharaoh and his army are pursuing them, and they think it's a crisis. Now look at verse 12. What happens? In verse 12, they are afraid, and this is what they do. Now in verse 11, they are afraid, and they are asking Moses, don't you think there were graves in Egypt, And verse 12, it says, didn't we say to you in Egypt, Leave us alone. Let us serve the Egyptians. If it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert. What do we see from the children of Israel? They forgot about the plagues. They forgot how God came through for them and showed them, and even killed the last plague, killed the firstborns of the Egyptians. And then now Pharaoh is mourning and tells them, leave this place right now. But as they are moving forward, Pharaoh is like, why did I let these people go? Why did I let them go? I will pursue them. And he starts pursuing them. And as the children of Israel are just forging forward, they get to a point of no return, and there's the Red Sea in front of them, and they have no idea how to cross. There are no boats. They don't know whether to swim. How far is this place? They look behind and they see, here are the Egyptians we were slaves to, pursuing us. They forgot that God had always been with them. They forgot that God had given them a word. I tell people, when you're in crisis, what you need is a word. A word from God will propel you to levels you've never been to. And see how they were, when you read that verse, they were so fast to remember the leaks in Egypt. They were so fast to remember the graves in Egypt. They were so fast to remember the onions. Most of us in our lives, we always, when we hit a certain point in our lives and we are not breaking forth, we start looking at our past and we're like,